It's alright.
Oh my god!
Yo guys, what is up? Max on our Wonderlands video, and today we're going over some new details that were put out about the Emancer and the Berserker after the gameplay trailer came out. We get to know a little bit more about how these classes are going to function. I hope you guys enjoy the video. Let's get right into it. So to start us off, the Berserker. Now, Berserkers are tenacious, frost-infused bruisers who complement their firepower with an onslaught of brutal up-close and personal melee attacks. When confronted with a problem, a Berserker's first instinct is to turn it into a popsicle and punch their way to a solution. Berserkers are hardy warriors who hail from the frozen mountains, with a long line of ancestors who trained their bodies to withstand and even harness the bitter cold of icy winters. In battle, Berserkers prefer to do their fighting up close and personal, taking point on the front lines as whirling maelstroms of exceptionally chilly death. Now we get a little bit more class information of how these classes are going to play. Berserkers are specialists of melee and cryo damage. The Berserker's otherworldly power allows them to become enraged via their action skills. And this enrage, I'm assuming, is this little red glow that we see on the characters when they're using their abilities. You can kind of see the glow on the character, and I'm assuming this is going to be a mechanic of the class that's probably going to increase some of your survivability, increase some of your damage, and will trigger and maybe stack as you use more and more abilities. Next up, they channel the power of frost through their weaponry so that they may freeze and shatter their enemies and manifest an arsenal of raw destructive force. I'm assuming when they talk about melee and cryo damage that you're going to be able to use a mix of weapons and melee weapons to do cryo damage and kind of go for like a full frost character. And also they mentioned this lifesteal mechanic. So Berserkers channel bloodlust, or their bloodthirst, by leeching life from fallen foes using magic. So we are going to get a little bit of magic with this class as well, in that when you kill enemies, you're going to heal from them. So in total, you're going to have an enrage mechanic on this class that's probably boost your damage and your survivability that's triggered via your action skills. You're also going to be healing from fallen foes. Sounds like overall you're going to, between your enrage and your healing, you're going to be pretty tough enemy to deal with. And we got some new class art as well. All right, moving on to the Emancer. So for the Emancer, it reads, Emancers are sneaky, critical hit-focused assassins who summon magic whirling blades to the battlefield and disappear into the shadows at will. Look, Stabomancy isn't really its own school of magic. It's a way of thinking. Specifically, how do I stab that guy? Up close with a dagger in the dark, a well-aimed bullet from afar, or even an ethereal psychic ghost sword. The thing is, Stabomancers are all about creating and capitalizing on opportunities. Jacks of all trades, masters of none, the skillful Stabomancer exploits foes' weaknesses to stealthily strike vital targets to bring enemies down before they know what hit them. Now for the new class information, Stabomancers specialize in critical hits and status effects. So status effects is interesting here. We do see that when the Stabomancer stabs something in the back, it freezes them, and we know from Borderlands 3 that there's a mechanic when things are frozen, they take more melee damage. So maybe the Stabomancer will also be kind of utilizing that, similar to how the Berserker is. But there could also be totally new status effect things in this game. Now, from the portion of this website that talked about spell casting, we actually know that poison is going to be in this game. They mention a continuous spell, that spells can either be an instant cast when you cast something and something happens, or they can be channeled spells like the new poison death beam spell. So poison could be very much something that the Stabomancer could be using. We could also see a bleed mechanic returning from the pre-sequel, and maybe the Stabomancer can inflict dots of like bleed onto enemies. That would be super cool. I'd really love to see like some poison and bleed. I love stuff like that. So the Stabomancer might have something like that, just speculation. It also says that they're able to keep enemies guessing by alternating between guns, melee weapons, and spells, all while moving in and out of stealth to score guaranteed critical hits. Now, this is sounding very much like the part that's like Jack of all trades, kind of like Zane meets Zero, and that you're a Jack of all trades kind of assassin-like character. You can use melee, you can use ranged. And also says that while fragile, Stabomancers can use their superior speed to evade damage and fire their guns while sprinting. So also another similar skill to like Zane, in that you can fire while sprinting. Now, we do know that when you're in stealth, or at least we can speculate from the gameplay, that when you are in stealth and you hit an enemy, there's ways to not consume that stealth. So like when we see the enemy stabbed in the back, it doesn't actually unstealth the Stabomancer, he keeps going. So pretty cool there. We're gonna get something more along the lines of fade away. I'm super curious to how the skill trees are going to look for this. We know that it's one skill tree per character, and the fact that the Stab-O-Mancer seems like it's going to have multiple ways to play. I could play the Stab-O-Mancer as a ranged character, and you could play the Stab-O-Mancer as a close range melee character. It's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out in the form of the skill trees, which are one skill tree per character for a total of 6 skill trees. Should be really interesting. And now we move on to our little class discussion. The last thing that I wanted to bring up is the remaining classes that have not been revealed yet in Wonderlands. Now, this is purely speculation, but we already know that we have the Rogue class. The Rogue class is going to be the Stab-O-Mancer. We know that we have the Barbarian class. That is going to be the Berserker. And they've been talking about a Summoner class, and in classic D&D, I'm going to assume that the Summoner is probably the Druid class that can summon companions and maybe shapeshift or anything like that. So that leaves us with 3 classes left. Now, in the gameplay of the first trailer that ever came out, we saw an action skill that looked like a bow firing a ton of multiple arrows. I'm going to assume that that is the Ranger class. So I'm assuming that we're going to get a Ranger class in Wonderlands. We also know that there's going to be, or assuming that there's going to be a dedicated spellcaster class. At least I would hope so, which in D&D, I'm going to assume that would be the Wizard class. That leaves 1 class left. We've got a Barbarian, a Druid, a Ranger, a Rogue, and a Wizard. Now, there was some sort of action skill that looked, it could have been a spell that was used in the first trailer that kind of looked like this like red demonic kind of cast. So I'm assuming that might be the Sorcerer. I'm not positive. It could be literally any of this. We could get a Cleric, a Bard, a Monk, a Fighter, a Warlock. But it did kind of look like a Sorcerer, so I just wanted to make this speculating about some of the classes. We do not know what they're going to be. It's just, I kind of have fun speculating about them, so I'm curious what your guys' opinions are, but I'm thinking that these are going to be what the classes end up looking like for Wonderlands: Barbarian, Druid, Ranger, Rogue, Wizard, and Sorcerer. I could be super wrong, but we'll see. Guys, that is it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. I will catch y'all in the next one. Take care, guys. Peace.